Hey, hello, and welcome to my presentation on social judgment theory in HBO's Succession. Let's get into it. Developed by Muzafer Sharif, Carolyn Sharif, and Carl Hovland in the 1960s, social judgment theory is a psychological framework that explains how people form and change their attitudes based on their perceptions. The theory suggests that individuals judge incoming information based on their pre-existing attitudes and values, rather than focusing on the subjective or the objective persuasiveness of the message. Social judgment theory emphasizes how individuals interpret and evaluate messages based on their pre-existing attitudes. So the 5 principles of social judgment theory are as follows. Principle 1, we have categories of judgment by which we evaluate persuasive positions. This means that individuals use their pre-existing attitudes and values as a reference point to judge incoming information. Principle 2, when we receive persuasive information, we locate it in our categories of judgment, and this allows us to evaluate the information and determine whether it aligns with our attitudes and values. Principle 3, our level of ego involvement affects the size of our latitudes. Individuals who have a high level of ego involvement in a topic have smaller latitudes of acceptance and rejection, meaning that they are less likely to accept information that falls outside of their pre-existing attitudes. Principle 4, we tend to distort incoming information to fit our categories of judgment. This means that individuals may interpret and evaluate information in a way that aligns with their attitudes, even if the information presented does not necessarily support their view. Principle 5, small to moderate discrepancies between our anchor positions and the one advocated will cause us to change. Large discrepancies, however, will not. This means that individuals are more likely to change their attitudes when presented with information that is only slightly discrepant from their current attitudes. However, if the discrepancy is too large, individuals are less likely to change their attitudes. Overall, these principles provide a framework for understanding how individuals form and change their attitudes. By recognizing these 5 principles, communicators can better understand how to effectively persuade and communicate with their audience. And now I'll go through each one by one. Okay, so principle 1, we have categories of judgment by which we evaluate persuasive positions. These categories refer to the pre-existing attitudes, judgments, and beliefs that individuals use to contextualize information. When we receive new information, we compare it to these categories to determine its relevance and credibility. Individuals also compare their attitudes to the attitude expressed by the communicator. This means that the effectiveness of a persuasive message depends on how closely the communicator's attitude aligns with the individual's attitude. It is important to note that the focus of social judgment theory is on how we evaluate persuasive positions rather than how persuasive the position actually is. This means that the individual's pre-existing attitude and beliefs play a crucial role in developing the effectiveness of a persuasive message. On the right, we have an example of what this looks like. Principle 2, when we receive persuasive information, we locate it on our categories of judgment. This means that individuals compare incoming information to their pre-existing attitudes and beliefs. Based on this comparison, the individual categorizes the information into one of the 3 latitudes: the latitude of acceptance, the latitude of rejection, or the latitude of non-commitment. The latitude of acceptance consists of all the positions that an individual finds acceptable. This means that if a persuasive message falls within the latitude of acceptance, the individual is more likely to be persuaded by the message. The latitude of rejection includes all those positions that the individual finds objectionable. If a persuasive message falls within the latitude of rejection, the individual is unlikely to be persuaded and may even become entrenched in their existing belief. The latitude of non-commitment is all positions on which an individual remains non-committal. This means that the individual does not have a strong opinion on the position and is unlikely to be persuaded in either direction. The anchor position refers to the individual's most preferred position and on the topic. And the anchor position serves as a reference point for evaluating other positions within the latitude of acceptance, rejection, and non-commitment. Principle 3, got a little preview. Our level of ego involvement affects the size of our latitudes. Ego involvement refers to how important an issue is to our self-identity. If an issue is highly ego involving, then the latitude of rejection tends to be larger at the cost of the latitude of acceptance and latitude of non-commitment. For example, imagine that someone's self-identity is strongly tied to their political beliefs. In this case, their ego involvement is likely to be high when it comes to political issues. As a result, their latitude of rejection will be larger, and they may be more resistant to persuasive messages that do not align with their political beliefs, which we see a lot today with polarization and such. On the other hand, if an issue is less ego involving, then the latitude of acceptance tends to be larger and the latitude of rejection tends to be smaller. This means that people are less likely to be persuaded by messages that fall within their latitude of acceptance. Understanding the concept of ego involvement is critical when trying to persuade others. Highly ego involved issues tend to have smaller latitudes of acceptance and larger latitudes of rejection, making it more difficult to persuade individuals with opposing views. By recognizing the importance of ego involvement and tailoring messages accordingly, communicators can increase the effectiveness of their persuasive messages. So we tend to distort incoming information to fit into these categories of judgment. This means that we often process information in a way that confirms our pre-existing attitudes, beliefs, and values, rather than processing it objectively. This distortion process depends on our initial anchor position. When persuasive information falls within the latitude of acceptance, we tend to assimilate it, which means that we interpret the information as being more consistent with our initial anchor position. On the other hand, when persuasive information falls outside the latitude of acceptance, we contrast it, which means that we interpret the information as being less consistent with our initial anchor position. Both assimilation and contrast are forms of distortions, as they involve processing information in a way that confirms our pre-existing attitudes and beliefs rather than objectively evaluating the information. By recognizing the impact of initial anchor positions and the tendency to distort incoming information to fit our categories of judgment, communicators can tailor their messages to minimize these biases and increase the effectiveness of persuasive messages. Principle 5. According to social judgment theory, the effectiveness of persuasive messages depends on how discrepant they are from our initial anchor position. When presented with new information that is moderately discrepant from our initial anchor position, we are more likely to change our attitudes and beliefs. However, for this change to occur, the new information must meet certain conditions. First, the new information must fall within our latitude of acceptance or non-commitment, meaning it must be within the range of positions that we consider acceptable or that we remain undecided on. Second, the information must be different from our initial anchor position. It must provide new information or a new perspective that we had not previously considered. And lastly, the new information, while discrepant from our anchor position, can't be assimilated or contrasted. If we easily interpret the new information as being consistent or contradictory to our initial anchor position, we are more likely to resist changing our attitudes and beliefs. Persuasive messages are most effective when they present new information that is moderately discrepant from our initial anchor position and meets the conditions of being within the latitude of acceptance or non-commitment, different from our anchor positions, and not easily assimilated or contrasted. By understanding these principles, communicators can tailor their messages to increase the persuasiveness and bring about attitude change. Okay, so now I'll relate social judgment theory to my favorite show on HBO right now, Succession. The series follows the Roy family, a wealthy, powerful family that owns and controls a global media empire. The series revolves around the family patriarch, Logan, who's depicted in the middle, and his kids, Kendall, Shiv, Roman, and Connor. Kendall's on the right, Shiv's all the way on the left, Roman in between Shiv and Logan, and Connor in between Kendall and Logan. Um, they're all vying for control of the family business, and the show explores the complex and intricate dynamics of a wealthy and powerful family and the lengths that they will go to maintain their status and control. Throughout the series, we see how power corrupts and how the pursuit of wealth and control can drive individuals to do unimaginable things. The show also delves into complex family relationships and how the struggle for power affects that. So in this scene, Logan is confronting his children about his decision to not name a successor, and it's in the first episode of the series.
Well, officially the deadline is passed, so what do you say, kids?
What's the Frank situation?
Frank's out of the picture.
Yeah?
Frank's dead. Tom's stepping up, and Shiv's thinking about a new role. So, are we good?
Shiv?
Rome?
Khan?
I'm with these two. What they say goes.
Our position is this doesn't quite work for us. At present.
You what?
It's not sufficiently attractive as a proposition.
Are you fucking joking?
We get that. We do. And we would love to help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would love to help.
Then help.
But I mean, why would I?
What?
When I'm giving away power, why would I do that?
So Kelly,
Who's Kelly?
Kelly must have some figures. You should see that, everything.
Dad?
Dad.
Yeah,
Dad, it's just a first
we
position.
can get
Dad.
a grasp of what.
Dad. 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 Subscribe.
Okay, right. So when Logan confronts his children about his decision to not name a successor, this decision is met with a non-commitment from Connor and a disagreement from Shiv and Roman, due to their higher levels of ego involvement, which in turn increase their latitude of rejection. According to the social judgment theory, people evaluate persuasive messages based on their pre-existing attitudes, beliefs, and judgments. In this case, Logan's children have a pre-existing belief that their father should inherit their father's company, and his decision not to name a successor falls outside of their latitude of acceptance. When the discrepancies between Logan's decision and his children's desired outcome make themselves known, it causes a sudden health scare for Logan. Social judgment theory posits that individuals will only change their attitudes or beliefs when a persuasive message falls within their latitude of acceptance or non-commitment, and the message is not easily assimilated or contrasted. In the case of Logan's children, the large discrepancies from their father's decision prevent them from easily being persuaded to accept his decision, leading to a high-stakes power struggle and heightened attempts at persuasion. The scene illustrates how the theory can be applied to real-life situations and how individuals' attitudes and beliefs can affect their actions and decisions. So in conclusion, social judgment theory is a valuable framework for comprehending how people evaluate and respond to persuasive messages in both personal and professional contexts. This theory highlights the critical role that ego involvement plays in shaping our reactions to persuasive attempts, sometimes even outweighing the influence of strong emotional connections, such as family love. However, by understanding the nuances of the latitude of acceptance and rejection and the impact of the contrast and assimilation effects, we can craft more effective persuasive strategies that are sensitive to the audience's pre-existing attitudes and beliefs. Yep, and that's all for me. Thank you so much for watching the presentation and teaching me all about communication behavior this semester. I've really enjoyed this class, and I feel like I've learned a lot. So thank you and goodbye.